a show that's been on the air for as long as South Park has had plenty of time to build up its lore throughout the years. This ranges from lampooning current events to explaining long-running gags such as the details behind Kenny's deaths. Even with the amount of ground that's been covered, some fans believe that there's more going on behind the scenes than the creators are letting on, whether that be details about certain characters or the entire universe of the show itself. That has us pondering the classic question: which of these explanations make the most sense and which ones are, as Cartman would say, wick? I'm Caleb with Wicked Binge, and these are South Park Theories BS to Truth Bombs. With that said, let's get the theories out of the way that have been debunked. These theories either have so many holes that they can't possibly be true, they lack evidence, or they've been confirmed false by the creators. These theories are bullshit. The show takes place entirely in Butter's memory. What this theory essentially means is that these are mostly real events that happened, but Butters is recollecting them while talking to a therapist. This would explain why the show has some grounding in reality, but can get really out of control, as these are warped memories sparked by Butter's trauma. We think this is a funny theory, but ultimately it holds no weight under scrutiny. How and why would Butters be remembering things he wasn't present for? Sure, maybe he could have found out about those events later, but if it doesn't affect him, why would he be telling this to a therapist? Not only is this theory pretty leaky to begin with, the season 22 episode, The Scoots, all but debunks this theory. This episode actually was a recollection of events explained by a narrator to the audience, but the person in question turned out to be Kenny. That would mean Butters is recollecting Kenny's recollection, which this is starting to make our heads hurt. The theory is debunked, end of story. Officer Bob Brady was never really a cop. Officer Bob Brady was portrayed as the only police officer in South Park for the longest time until Sergeant Yates and the police department were introduced in later seasons. This caused some confusion, as Officer Barbrady was rarely if ever seen with the department, leading some fans wondering what his relationship with them was. This theory suggests that Barbrady was never working with the actual police department, and all the residents of the town were keeping up appearances out of pity. Barbrady is very slow and gullible, so it's reasonable enough to believe that someone tricked him into thinking this was his job. While this theory was not necessarily a bad one at the time, it has been subsequently debunked by season 19 of South Park. This showed Barbrady was indeed working with the police force, even though he was subsequently fired for shooting an unarmed Latino boy. He may not be a cop anymore, but we can say for certain he was at one time. Moving on from the BS, these theories still have a lot of problems, not enough to say they're completely debunked, but still. These theories are full of holes. Randy and Sharon are actually siblings. The parents of Stan and Shelley, Mr. and Mrs. Marsh, have had many ups and downs in their marriage, usually stemming from Randy's fiascos. They do argue quite a bit, but mostly stay together, which does somewhat resemble a sibling rivalry. Really, we're playing devil's advocate here. We think there's no legitimacy to this theory whatsoever. The idea stems from the fact that Sharon sometimes refers to Randy's father Marvin as her dad. We think that's quite a stretch to say the least. It's totally plausible to believe that Sharon is referring to Marvin as her father-in-law, not her biological father. It's not like this is unusual in many relationships. We can't put this theory totally in the BS section, as it hasn't been formally debunked like our previous theories. Plus, given Matt and Trey's sick sense of humor, we're willing to at least accept the possibility that they would go here. The evidence that's provided so far, though, does not give enough weight for us to consider this theory true as of yet. Kenny is in a coma. Ever since the finale of Saint Elsewhere, a classic theory that befalls any television show is that it's all made up in one character's mind. In this case, it's Kenny, who has supposedly been in a coma from a near-death experience since before the series began. The world of South Park is his his warped fever dream based on stories he hears of the outside world. This would explain a few things, such as Kenny's many deaths being trauma from the event that put Kenny in the coma in the first place. Personally, we don't think this concept is true for one simple reason. It's way too cliche for Matt Stone and Trey Parker. We're also not sure why Kenny would be dreaming of scenes and scenarios that he has no involvement in. So much like the theory about Butters, it crumbles under that logical standpoint as well. Personally, we hope this theory isn't true because on top of not making any sense, it would be an extremely trite and boring twist. Stan, Kyle, Cartman, and Kenny represent the four horsemen of the apocalypse. This may sound far-fetched, but it has been confirmed that the SpongeBob characters are based off the 7 deadly sins, so it's not out of the realm of possibility. Let's take a closer examination. Kenny would represent death. That one is pretty straightforward. Cartman would likely be conquest, considering his constant desire for authority. Kyle could be war, considering how often he fights with Cartman. It's a bit of a stretch, but it's possible. That leaves Stan with famine, which makes no sense at all. If anything, Kenny would be famine as well as death, considering his family's low income. We're not going to say that this is total BS, as there is some evidence here, but Stan unfortunately causes this theory to crumble in legitimacy quite a bit. With that said, we're now into the middle category, where we may stumble onto some truth, maybe. These theories are possible. South Park is set in the same universe as the Peanuts. This may seem totally out there at first, but we actually believe there is enough similarities to raise some eyebrows. Both South Park and Peanuts are told from the same perspective of kids who remain young despite living through several decades. The Peanut characters may not be as vulgar as the South Park kids, but they are every bit as cruel and sadistic. Even the art style for both properties, while very different, used the same technique of very simple character design and adding layers of depth on top of those simplistic images. There are even moments in South Park which directly reference Peanuts in many ways, shape, and forms. With all that being said, we still think this is pretty out there. The adults in South Park may be often stupid, but they don't talk in an incomprehensible wah 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 voice. Peanuts is also usually much more grounded than South Park, aside from some moments with Snoopy and Woodstock. As much as we love both South Park and Peanuts, we need a little more evidence before we can declare this theory as true. South Park is purgatory for stupid people. South Park may be a clear satire of American culture, but there are a lot of supernatural elements at play in the show's narrative. This is a universe featuring singing pieces of poop and towels with weed addictions. So, while events of the show mirror our reality, it's certainly taking place in a world of its own. A few have suggested that South Park is actually full of dead people who were deemed too stupid to end up in heaven or hell. This would explain why Satan and Jesus make frequent appearances in the town, as it's a common ground where they can both appear. The problem with this theory is that not everyone in the town is stupid. The kids in particular demonstrate extraordinarily high intelligence, and even a few of the adults have moments of brilliance here and there. It also doesn't explain how characters, aside from Kenny, die and don't come back to South Park afterward. I mean, where are they gonna go? Detroit? These next conspiracies make a lot of sense. In fact, we think they're more likely to be true than not. These theories are probable. Cartman is in love with Kyle. One of the most defining aspects of South Park is Cartman's rivalry with Kyle, which is the driving force behind many episodes of the show. Even though they display so much vitriolic hate towards each other, some have come to speculate that Cartman is secretly in love with Kyle. Cartman and Kyle partake on many adventures together, usually along with Stan and Kenny, even if they're arguing all the way. Cartman is incredibly anti-Semitic and hates Kyle's know-it-all attitude, but it seems to show signs of caring about him on some level. When Kyle moves to San Francisco, for example, Cartman misses the conflict between the two and travels many miles to get him back. Cartman even saves Kyle's life in Imagination Land. Granted, that was so Kyle could suck his balls, but that hardly detracts from our point. Cartman's life in the future as a devoted Jewish dad may have even stemmed from Kyle's influence. We think it's undeniable that Cartman cares about Kyle, maybe more than he even thinks. Kenny's family is poor due to paying for his many funerals. While Kenny always returns from his many deaths, one thing that is inconsistent is how long he actually stays dead. Sometimes he's resurrected almost immediately, and other times he's deceased for quite a while. In the case of his prolonged absences, Kenny is sometimes given a funeral which must come out of his own parents' pockets. Why would they do this? Well, Carol and Stuart McCormick aren't exactly portrayed as the brightest or most financially responsible people in the first place. Their drinking habits, drug abuse, and perpetual unemployment makes them barely able to scrape by and provide for their family in the first place. We have no problem believing they'd pay for unnecessary funerals even knowing Kenny will come back anyway. We will say that these funerals are not the only cause of the McCormick's financial woes, but we believe it is certainly putting gasoline on a roaring fire. Finally, we've reached the truth. Confirmed truth. People have blown the whistle on these theories with such compelling evidence that it must be true, or a creator confirmed it. These theories are the truth bombs. Kenny's deaths are linked to why everyone in the town doesn't age. One of the most notable gags in South Park are the many deaths of Kenny, which the creators have expanded on through the use of the Coon/Mysterion trilogy. It was revealed there that Kenny's immortality is due to his parents, Stuart and Carol, made some sort of agreement at a cult meeting long ago. The specifics are left up in the air, as well as why everyone can't seem to remember Kenny dying, leaving many answers still open to speculation. One such speculation is that Kenny is somehow linked to the reason everyone in the town stays the same age. Many long-running shows like The Simpsons or Family Guy feature the characters staying the same age for many years with no one batting an eye. The difference in South Park's case is that the show is so topical and constantly evolving with the times that time still seems to be moving forward despite the characters never looking much older. There are a few cases where there are signs of progression, like how the kids enter 4th grade in a season 4 episode. This suggests to us that characters are aging, but very slowly. However, this slow aging process does not seem to extend to characters outside of South Park, as demonstrated by Terrence and Philip becoming elderly. The big twist to this is the post-COVID special, where we do finally see what the kids would be like as adults after having aged 40 years. What happened immediately before this that sparked this time jump? The bro-ship between the 4 main characters ended with no one showing more concern than Kenny. Could Kenny be aware of the dynamic between the 4 as keeping the town from aging, like he's aware of his many deaths? Did the cult meeting that Carol and Stuart attended also have something to do with this? Whatever the case, Kenny remains South Park's most mysterious resident for a reason, as so many secrets of the show seem to be hidden within the muffled confines of his hood. But real quick, before we get to our last entry, if you're enjoying this video, do us a huge favor and hit that subscribe button and notification bell. We ask because we'd really appreciate the help getting to our next milestone, and we have lots more videos we'd love to share with you. Thanks so much. South Park is part of a supernatural experiment. This theory states that a secret organization is using South Park as the testing grounds to unleash paranormal and outlandish circumstances in South Park as a result. This would explain why the occurrences in the town are so bizarre, as well as further explain the circumstances behind Kenny's immortality and the residents' inability to age. We're putting this at the top of our list as all of this has been pretty much confirmed in one form or another. Kenny's parents did indeed join a secret organization which granted their child immortality. On top of that, the season 7 episode Cancelled explains that South Park, along with the rest of the Earth, is part of an ongoing reality TV show that was made by a group of aliens. We're not sure if the Cthulhu cult members and the aliens are linked directly, but whether they are or not, the events of South Park are indeed dictated by secret secret organizations. As such, we don't think there's another theory that counts as a bigger truth bomb. But let us know what you think of these theories. Do you think any of them are truth bombs? Be sure to hit that notification bell and binge our other South Park videos. But most importantly, stay wicked.